Hello, everybody. I'm Dom Joseph for the Penguin Rundown, and joining me is YSU alum Ron Jaworski. Ron, good to have you back on campus.
Dom, it's absolutely awesome. I'm really excited about being back in Youngstown. I have not been to a game since 1972, and I played in that game. So I've been back here numerous times for different events, but the first time I'm back to watch a Penguin football game. Very excited about that.
Yeah, glad to have you back for sure. Now, you graduated in 1972, you said. You grew up in Lackawanna, New York. Mm-hmm. Why did you choose YSU for football?
Dyke Beatty and the Penguin program at the time. I was a highly recruited athlete coming out of Lackawanna High School just outside of Buffalo. 38 teams had recruited me to come and play college football. We made a visit here, drove down from Lackawanna, New York with my dad. And Dyke Beatty recruited my dad, literally. And you know, after spending an entire day here in Youngstown, we're driving back home, and my dad goes, you know, I like that Coach Beatty. I think you ought to go to Youngstown State. And so Dyke Beatty did a great job of recruiting my dad, not me. So all worked out really well.
Now, what was something about Dyke Beatty? I mean, did he help you change your game in any way, change your approach to the game?
Well, it was a different style offense. At that time, it was called the side saddle T. Right now, it's a variation we see in the NFL and college football, these spread offenses. They're all very similar to the side saddle T, except now the quarterback's a little bit deeper back in the pocket. But what really got me thinking I wanted to go to Youngstown is I was probably the same height I am now, about 6'2.5", but I weighed about 160 pounds. And I'm being recruited by Syracuse and Pitt and Penn State and Georgia Tech and Georgia, Florida, Boston College, Boston. I'm visiting all these campuses, and I'm going, look at these guys, man. I'm going to get killed. My body is not mature enough yet. Now, eventually I'll get bigger and stronger, but I wasn't ready. And I felt Youngstown would afford me the opportunity to play. And I tell a lot of young guys now in high school, before they make their college decision, I work a lot of camps and talk to a lot of really good young players. I say, don't go to Ohio State because it's Ohio State. Or don't go to Penn State because it's Penn State. Go where you can grow and play. And I felt Youngstown would afford me the opportunity to get bigger, to get stronger, and play. Because you don't get any better if you're not on the field.
Right.
So I don't want to be the third stringer at Penn State where I could be the starter at Youngstown State. And then grow and mature as a player as time went on. So it worked out very well.
And what was one of your biggest memories playing here at YSU?
Yeah, I think whenever I think of memories, I think of my teammates and the coaching staff and those memories, because I maintain really strong relations with a lot of former players, which I cherish immensely. But I think if there's one football memory I have, it's beating Akron.
Yeah.
Because they were our arch rival, and Dyke Beatty says, we win this game, everyone gets a gold football. Now, not a big gold football, just small gold football, but we did beat Akron, and that gold football sits proudly on my display case at home.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're in the top 5 for a lot of YSU school records. What does that mean to you?
The records are irrelevant. They really are, and I don't mean to negate the value of them, but I didn't play the game to have records and that sort of thing. I enjoyed the camaraderie of the team sport like football, and I always felt, if I played well, we're going to win. It wasn't being player of the week, player of the year, an All-American, a Super Bowl. None of those things really wasn't my goal. Yeah, you want to win that, but I always felt the teamwork involved in football is so important that you have to leave your ego at the door. And I always felt to be successful, I had to check that ego at the door and be the consummate team player. So as much as good things that happen individually, the best thing is the teamwork aspect of sports, and particularly in football, where 11 guys have to be cohesive on every single play.
So after your time at Youngstown State, you spent 17 years playing in the National Football League, and then you made the transition to the broadcast booth with ESPN. How difficult was that transition going from the field to the booth?
It was ridiculously difficult. I was a football player, and now I'm 40 years old, and they asked me to start doing television. Now, fortunately, I did get some experience as a player because you're always doing interviews, you're around the media, but you're never on that side of the camera. It's a little bit different. We're on this side of the camera, talking about the game, and I'm the guy doing the interviews. I'm the guy breaking the game down. It was a little bit different, and quite honestly, it was a little bit scary, because you had to learn, and you're live television. Things happen when you're on live television, so that was the adjustment, and probably the biggest adjustment I made was when I got the Monday Night Football gig with John Gruden and Mike Tirico, and two of the finest people you'd ever want to meet. I mean, these guys they're superstars, super people, and I learned so much from them, as well as Tony Kornheiser, who I did Monday Night Football with as well. Phenomenal people. But the thing about Monday Night Football it was for me, it's a marquee job. You know, at 9 o'clock, now it's 8:20 on Monday night, and you look into that camera and you see that red light on, there's 20 million people looking at you. So you're like, whoa, so you, number one, total preparation all week. When I tell people I work 90 hours a week when I was doing Monday Night Football, no, 90 hours, preparation. So when that light does go on, you are totally prepared for anything that could happen during the next 3.5 hours. So that was kind of the scary part, the early years of Monday Night Football for me. But then you get into the flow and you're working with quality people, and eventually it becomes second nature. But I would probably say my first few Monday night games, calling Monday Night Football, were probably the toughest.
Wow. And last question for you. One thing you mentioned when you came in was the competition of the field. And you were in the NFL, so you know a lot about competition, and now in the broadcast booth, there's competition there as well. So what advice can you give a sports broadcasting student here at Youngstown State in terms of competition and being on your A game?
I think number one is preparation. You've got to know your subject matter. You just can't show up. And, in all my years at ESPN, and I maintain my office now still at NFL Films, so I have access to a lot of wonderful people and a lot of resources to get information. And, I worked with, Chris Berman for 28 years. Stuart Scott, we did the matchup show for a number of years. We worked in studio for a number of years. The Rich Eisens of the world, the Dan Patricks. I worked with all these guys. And, I know one thing about them. They just don't come in and sit in a chair and start doing their job. They are totally prepared. They're consummate professionals. And that's what I learned about the broadcast business, just like playing in the NFL for 17 years. In the NFL, the average career is 3.1 years. Probably shocks some people.
Wow.
I lasted 17 years because you constantly prepare, you constantly work. So I did have that work ethic. My parents instilled that in me. But also when I'm on TV, I found out that those guys, what you want to do, Dom, you have to spend a lot of time in preparation. You just don't walk in, sit in that chair and go, hey, here I am, folks. I'm going to do this show. It's going to be simple. It's not that way, man. You got to bust your butt in preparation. So any curveball that comes in the course of an interview, a game, a show, you got to be prepared for it. Be prepared.
Well, Mr. Jaworski, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and talk with us. It means a lot, and great to have you back on campus.
Great to be here in Youngstown.
All right.
Go Penguins.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Jaworski. I'm Dom Joseph for the Penguin Rundown.